Hello. Welcome back to all my beautiful friends and family. We are at episode 4 of the Crafted and Carved podcast. It's your girl, Kenny, and I'm so happy to have you guys back with me for another episode. We switched up the intro music. I was loving the first, track, but I think this one is definitely way more of a vibe. I wanted to keep it upbeat, but I definitely wanted to kind of bring it to where I feel like, we start off every single episode, which is with like a more chill and laid back vibe. I don't know. I feel like music is very like important and central, and it definitely sets the tone. So yes, we wanted to switch that up. But yes, everyone, welcome back. I'm so excited to have you guys here with me again to talk about another exciting topic. I really don't have like a big long introduction for this one. I've got the title, but there's no like lead in, right? So this episode is all about the cycles of hurt. Um, and for everyone, they're going to have their own understanding of what that means, when they hear that phrase of like what pops into their head. And for some of y'all are like, what are you talking about? So that's why we're going to break it down today, right? So, I wanted to keep it really simple because I felt like this topic was important, simply because I feel like as human beings, we all experience hurt, right? We all experience emotional damage, whether it be at a very high level, in the form of trauma, or whether it be at a very just basic level where like somebody offended you or said something or did something that made you uncomfortable. We all experience this. I don't think hurt is an emotion per se, but it definitely is like the product also, or maybe the source of emotions. I don't know. Maybe it can be both. Like it can be the product of emotion and the source, I guess. Um, you tell me. But anyway, so I wanted to keep this simple. And in talking about what the cycle of hurt is and what it looks like, it's really just simply this idea that hurt people hurt people. We hear that phrase all the time, right? And because we hear it all the time, it honestly feels like this watered down concept, right? That hurt people hurt people. But reality is, it's so true. Like, if you're harboring onto hurt, if you're harboring onto pain, if you're harboring onto emotional harm that you have not healed from, 9 times out of 10, you're going to hold on to it. And notice I use the word harbor because, like, it kind of just sits. It doesn't go anywhere and it starts to fester and it starts to grow. And because it's unhealed, 9 times out of 10, you're going to end up hurting someone else, right? And so this is an interesting entry point, right? Because a lot of times when we talk about these cycles, we're thinking about how other people have hurt us, right? And that's absolutely a part of this as well. But also, this is a conversation that doesn't exclude anybody because we all have experienced hurt, right? So when we experience hurt, if we're not dealing with it, we're likely going to hurt someone else, regardless of the person who is at the top of the food chain that hurt you. Because that person hurt you, if you don't check your own hurt, then you're going to continue to pass it on and pass it on. And then we got this vicious, endless cycle of people hurting one another, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And we're causing so much pain and trauma and damage, um, when really the world needs more love. Okay, now I know that was cheesy, y'all. I know it was cheesy. Try not to cringe, okay? But it's true. Like, we really need to be out here spreading love, and we really need to be out here spreading positivity and just good vibes and good energy and all sorts of just, um, things that can help a sister out or help a brother out or help a cousin out or help a family member out. Let's pick each other up when we're down. Let's, push each other forward. Let's um give each other hugs and kisses and smiles and clapping, when we do something big, clapping when we do something small, patting each other on the back, just bringing out more energy that is rooted in joy, and it's hard to reach that place of joy when you're stuck in hurt. And even when you have this unhealed hurt and you are able to have moments of joy, it's really, really hard not to have those moments of joy and just selfishly hold it in and grab and squeeze so tight to this joy that you have a hard time letting it flow out of you onto others. You have a hard time letting those positive things that happen to you flow out onto others. And that's just not a good place to be in. It's not a great space to be in, where you're in a space where you have hurt, you've got joy, and you can't even share it with others around you because you just feel like all the joy is needed to mask the pain. And then that's also like sidebar where we get caught up into searching for and tracking down types of joy that come from fake spaces and places and people. We look for these temporary pleasures and these temporary excitements and these things that are on Instagram and social media that are supposed to make us happy, but truly they don't. But we keep grabbing towards it and going for it because it boosts our little serotonin every once in a while, and it makes us wanna it makes us feel better, right? It covers up that pain. It makes us feel like we can mask the pain one more day, and we keep, pushing for it. So that's another topic. That's not what this episode is about. I could go on a sermon on the mount, y'all, about the way that we just as a society are so attracted and addicted to fake highs, right? But yes, so on today's episode, right, the cycle of hurt, and just wanted to make sure that, I shared this with you guys from a transparent space because, I'm both victim of and inflictor of hurt. So I've been a part of the cycle. I've been hurt by friends, by family members, by previous romantic partners. And it took me a really long time to see that because of that hurt, I continued to hurt other individuals with absolutely no intention of doing so. But I think that's just life's journey and life's work, is just to constantly reflect and pay attention so that you can heal. I'm thinking that these things, because I am not carrying them front and center every single day, are not a part of who I am, and they have no effect or influence on how I move about life. But they do, that best friend that stabbed me in the back in like 6th grade, it definitely plays a role in how I view friendships with women in 2023 and why I feel like I can't trust them, right? And so when I walk into these relationships, I'm guarded, and I'm quick to kind of pull away, and kind of disappear and just, ghost my girlfriends. This is a real story, and it's hard to have that recognition, and it's also hard to accept that in me trying to protect myself in that space that I'm also hurting someone. who truly cares about me. And that's just a little snippet, y'all, because we're all in various relationships and we've all experienced hurt in various relationships. And so this really does spill over into every aspect of life. This also spills over into career and business partnerships and relationships as well. So, without going into like this super super deep dive, right, of every single category I just named, I just want to take a step back. I definitely want for everyone that's listening to this podcast to just take a second and really just, audit their own heart right now, audit their own mind and the spirit. I would say right now, but also this week, and just bring some awareness to this particular space in your life. Bring some awareness to that thing you haven't thought about for 20 or 30 years that hurt you, and tell yourself it's okay because you're here now. So you're alive, you're well, it didn't kill you. So it's okay to think about it and try to breathe through it and try to look at it with a different perspective and just grab hold of it for 2 seconds, and attempt to kind of see and trace any behaviors in 2023 that may be linked to that past hurt. Okay, and that's all I'm gonna do. That's all I'm gonna ask you to do. Is just to think on it and ponder on it. And I really, really pray that through, after you have done that through the remainder of this podcast, you will find hope. You will find light and a path in how to, address that cycle of hurt. And hopefully, which is the real goal of this, is how you can escape that cycle of hurt, right? Because we obviously don't want to be stuck there. It's not a good place to be. It's not a place that is intentional, but we also, can't keep making excuses for ourselves. We want to remove ourselves from that whole space of this is just how I am. That's just what I do. We're not doing that anymore in 2023. Okay. So we got to drop that and we got to really pursue like better living and better mindsets and just being our best selves, right? So that whole that's just how I was raised and that's just what okay, I feel you to the 10,000th power. I really do get it. But it's not going to be a valid excuse, when you sit down in a business meeting and you don't know how to, compose yourself without getting pissed off because the person, said the wrong, used the wrong term or spelled your branding wrong. And because when you were a little kid, your school teacher used to mess up your name. I promise you, okay, that was like a very simple one, but y'all, this stuff really does run deep. So anyway, that's my homework. That's my request. Just take that self audit this week. And definitely leave me a comment or a little note to let me know if there is anything that you've been working on that actually resonated with you and that actually helped this week. Okay, so basically, I did want to give you guys like a little briefing on what I have identified as the various different types of hurt. And trust me, I did not get this from any like WebMD article or Psychology Today article, nothing like that. So just bear with me. But these are some categories that I have kind of identified for myself to kind of help you guys when you're doing this audit. So the first is internal. The second is external. The third is conscious hurt. And the fourth is subconscious hurt. And just to put this out here, all four of these can overlap, right? So none of these are mutually exclusive, meaning that your hurt may be both internal and external. It may be conscious and subconscious. It may be subconscious and internal. It may be subconscious and external. So all of this stuff can overlap, but just hear me out, right? So internal is hurt that we've inflicted upon ourselves. It's hurt that we caused because of things that we did. Like maybe you spent all of your money on a lottery ticket or gambling or something, right? And you lost, and now your life savings is gone, and you're getting evicted, and you're homeless. Like, I don't know. That's like a very extreme example. Um, but the root of that, right, stems from a bad decision you made. And so because of that bad decision, it caused you um actual problems and harm, but it absolutely caused some emotional harm. So there's internal hurt, but obviously, most people will identify with external hurt, which comes from other people, right? So when a third party, a mother, or a father, or a sister, or a brother, or a boyfriend, or a girlfriend, a best friend, does something or says something to cause you hurt. Or it could also be, I'm naming like people that are close to you because for me personally, like people that I don't know don't have the ability to hurt me, but that's just me. But also it could obviously come from somebody that you don't know, like a Karen or somebody who, like maybe work in customer service, and that, customer cussed you out when all you were trying to do was, help or do what your boss told you to do. Um, so external comes from other people. Conscious hurt is hurt where somebody intentionally did something with the end goal of hurting you, right? So that's like usually takes the form of abuse, but it also could be somebody actually like physically assaulting you or verbally assaulting you. So the Karen situation. So that lady spewing some really racist comments at you with an intention to hurt your feelings, or you consciously hurting yourself because maybe you're battling with some depression and some really horrible thoughts, and so you do some things that are self-harming to yourself. And so that would be conscious hurt. And then, of course, there's subconscious hurt, which happens without the forethought of harm. So somebody is doing something, their actions or their words are being done with an intention that has nothing to do with harming you. It may be even done with a hope or an intent to help you or to love you or to express something positive, but the actual outcome is harm. And the actual outcome is hurt. So, those are the four different types that I've identified because it really helps me to kind of sit down and say, okay, there are probably some things that really did hurt me that people that were accidents. I'm so accepting, and I just try so hard to allow everybody to be themselves, that in people being themselves, sometimes I forget to um, kind of just take a second and say, wait a minute. I understand that she probably did not mean any harm, but that actually really hurt my feelings and that really offended me. I didn't like that and that did not feel good. So that's one of the things that I am taking more inventory of. Not that I just want to be like a big softy about everything, but just being more conscious and bringing more awareness to my feelings and just allowing myself to embrace the fact that these are valid feelings, these are valid emotions. And the more that I embrace them, the more I can stop myself in my own tracks of the cycle of hurt, right? Because if I'm just sitting here and letting somebody hurt me, right? Because I'm trying to say, oh, they didn't mean it, wasn't a big deal, but it's actually hurting me, but I keep brushing it off. That is a big way that the cycle of hurt starts to kind of roll and get and grow, because I'm not bringing awareness to this pain. I'm not because I'm not bringing awareness to this pain, I'm unable to heal from the hurt that was caused by those um itty bitty wounds, you know? It's like literally if you get slashed, you know, by with a little paper cut, it doesn't really hurt. But if you take a paper cut and you slash it again with another piece of paper in the same exact spot and you keep slashing, keep slashing, you're gonna have a pretty bad wound, you know? So don't overlook those small little things. It's not that you have to call somebody out and put them in their place. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that you have to take inventory of it. And that's what I definitely am practicing, taking inventory of it so that I can heal, so that I can embrace that, you know, I didn't like that feeling. And now this is how I'm going to handle it. Okay. Um, a couple of other things that I wanted to talk about with this cycle of hurt is symptoms. Symptoms sounds like, is this a disease? Don't think too hard about it. It may not be anything too, you know, crazy per se, right? But these are just some like I would say these are more behavioral patterns that I've picked up from. And maybe you guys know some more. So if you guys know some more, like drop it down in the comments and tell me some things that you have picked up about yourself or other people who are stuck in a cycle of hurt. So some symptoms of the cycle of hurt may be difficulty expressing yourself, difficulty standing in your truth, difficulty embracing others' truth, difficulty clapping for others or celebrating others, difficulty living in the present moment, and difficulty remaining consistent. Woo. Okay, so I don't really want to break these down because this is a lot. Like these are all real um things that we run into every day, right? So I guess if you're experiencing some of this, it may not be from the cycle of hurt, but it's very possible that it could be. Um, and I kept this, and the reason I came up with this list is because I wanted to keep it very straightforward. But I took this list from doing a little bit of self assessment, but also obviously looking and thinking about some people in my own life that I'm like, ooh, all right, you're clearly stuck in a cycle of hurt. And these were either their actions, my actions, or what have you. So like I said, if you guys have more, drop some down in the comments. Difficulty expressing yourself is like a weird one, right? And I wanted to point all of these out, and I'm gonna just touch on them for like 2 seconds. But difficulty expressing yourself is a weird one because something like that could have started from as young as when you were able to talk, right? So that really could start with your parents, and how they embraced your self-expression or did not embrace your self-expression. So that's always a really hard one to track. But if you normally have been a pretty expressive person or someone who speaks their mind or someone who expresses themselves through words or art or whatever format, and you've started to see a shift in your freedom or your um the just the overall feeling that you get when you express yourself. Maybe you experience anxiety now when you start to try to express yourself. Then you may be stuck in a cycle of hurt, right? You may be in the part where someone has hurt you and you have not healed. And because of this, you know, you may just want to, you know, do that audit so that you can escape the cycle of hurt before whatever harm that you experience is passed on to someone else. Um, the difficulty of standing in your truth. This is an interesting one. I would say that this one comes from when you know that something is wrong, you know, or you know that someone is doing wrong, but you make excuses for them. this is like when you ignore red flags, but this could also be like, you know, somebody gaslighting you and essentially trying to um, tell you that your truth is not what it actually is. And instead of you knowing better and saying absolutely not, you're wrong, what are you talking about, leave me alone, don't say that, I'm getting away from this person who's gaslighting me, you struggle with that interaction, and you do begin to question yourself, and you do begin to struggle, and you do have that really difficult time standing in what you know is true, what you know is right. And um yeah, so that is another one where somebody may have inflicted harm on you, and you are, struggling with standing in your truth. So taking that audit before you know, really get into some specifically romantic relationships. Before you get into a new romantic relationship, so that you do not inflict this harm onto somebody else. And the thing that's interesting I have noticed about the cycle of hurt is that sometimes the hurt that you inflict onto someone else is not always going to be similar to or exactly like the harm that was inflicted on you. Um, so just keep that in mind. Just because you may have been gaslit in a relationship and that hurt you doesn't mean that you're going to go and start gaslighting other people. Um, it could be now that you're just really, really defensive about standing in your truth. And because of that, now you need to be in control, and you won't let anybody get a word in edgewise. And, okay. So it gets really expansive. And that's why I'm going to keep going through these, but just take that time for yourself and really assess where you're at. The next one, difficulty embracing others' truth. So this one, I think falls on either side of where you are the inflictor or you're the victim of the harm. It's really difficult for you to embrace somebody else's truth. So that falls into the gaslighting situation, right? So you may be gaslighting somebody if you have a really hard time embracing their truth, because you don't have to agree with that person to embrace the fact that that is their truth, that is their view, that is their understanding about the world, the day, the life, the emotion, the whatever. And you can embrace that, and you can support that without agreeing with what they're saying and doing. So, um, it can definitely fall on either side of the coin. You could be the person who is harming others, right? But you can also be the person who has suffered from someone hurting them recently, or you know. So the next one, difficulty clapping for others or celebrating others. Um, this one is interesting because I think part of this, whenever I see that in someone else, it always like boggles my mind. Um, but I used to jump to, wow, like this coming from a place of pride, right? And I think that that is true, but I think the pride is tied to hurt. And I think that this is definitely, I guess it could fall on either side of the coin, but I think it leans more on the side of somebody inflicting the harm. And it's usually because of, something way back in their past where they didn't receive the affirmation that they needed and deserved in their childhood. Um, from their friends. Maybe they were bullied in school, and they are just seeking validation and affirmation so much in their life that anytime that anybody else receives validation or celebration, it is really, really difficult for them to join in the celebration of these other people. And because of that, they inflict hurt onto people who, need them for support. Um, okay, so the next one, difficulty living in the present moment. This is definitely both sides of the coin, but I would say it's more for the person who's recently been hurt, because it is so you're usually so wound up and so anxious that it's hard for you to appreciate the little things, and hard for you to take in joy. um and this goes back into what I was talking about earlier, where it's like sometimes you just go on this rampage for joy, and you just suck it all in and keep it to yourself and hold it in, and you can't let it go. You're squeezing it tight, and just rampaging through life for the next high, because you know everything is just to cover up and mask the hurt and the pain, which makes it hard for you to live in the present and really appreciate the present and really take in the moments of sadness and anger and frustration and hurt and pain. Um, and so then the last one is just difficulty remaining consistent. This is for both sides, where you may be, actively inflicting hurt, or recently been hurt by someone. Um, and the difficulty remaining consistent is, in my view, it's just when someone um, is struggling to focus, right? Because the hurt is they don't realize it, right? But the hurt is their like number one focus. And it's not because they wake up every day and think about how hurt they were, but they wake up and they work to like literally the bone to distract themselves from the hurt, and they tire out quickly, right? So you're like, okay, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna exercise, I'm gonna, eat healthy, I'm gonna go to Bible study, I'm gonna this, I'm gonna that, I'm gonna do all the things, right? And then you just go into this like overdrive mode, all to mask the hurt, and then you burn out. You know what I mean? Because obviously it's good to have positive goals. I mean, obviously this can go in the wrong direction too, where you burn out with stuff that's bad. So I guess that would be good. I don't know. But we're talking about remaining consistent with just things in life and focusing on your goals. Um and so when you have a difficulty remaining consistent, you almost always end up hurting someone in the process, because more than likely you have promised either yourself or someone something, whether it be your boss or your significant other, that you were going to show up in a certain way. And ultimately you're just using these things as a way to fuel yourself, to motivate you to escape from hurt that you really need to sit down with and address and work through. And probably give yourself some grace and pace yourself a little bit slower while you're working through that hurt, so that you can remain consistent, and then you can start to work yourself up back to a more high speed or a more energetic pace. Um, okay, so anyway, those are all of the different symptoms, and thank you guys for bearing with me as I went through all of them, but I definitely wanted to break those down. I think that in order to really get to escaping, right, from the cycle of hurt, it absolutely has to be broken up, because there is real trauma, okay, that comes from being in a cycle of hurt. There is abuse. We talked about all different things, all different types of hurt. And some of these cycles cause trauma, both psychological and physical trauma. And so if the hurt that you have taken an audit of falls into the category of trauma, and please, look it up. I'm not going to give you a WebMD definition, but if you even feel, you know, like that falls into the category, then I need you to go and take the steps to seek um counseling, therapy, mental health is so important. And I know that is a trend to say in 2023, which is a great thing. But it's a big deal and it definitely can't be watered down or overlooked, because it is important. So, for whatever area of, life it falls into, look into some therapy resources, start learning about therapy, pull up some YouTube videos and learn how it works, and find a therapist in your area. There are so many free therapists. Okay, you don't need money to go see a therapist. There's free counseling. I was going to free counseling for a very long time. If you are a university student, there is usually a free counselor on your campus somewhere available and accessible to you that is in your tuition. Actually, it's not free because you're paying for it, okay, with your tuition dollars. So go up in there and use that therapist. But it's just everything outside of trauma, in my opinion, can be addressed outside of therapy. I think therapy is the optimal place to address anything really difficult you're going through in life. But with some intentionality and discipline, you can literally address anything else that's not trauma. And so I put together a couple of little steps you guys can look at and think about after you've done your audit. And this is your escape plan for how to get out of the cycle of hurt, right? The first step is awareness. And we talked about that in the beginning, is bringing the awareness to whatever things in life that you have experienced that may have been sources of hurt. But also bringing awareness to areas in your life where you may have inflicted hurt. Where have you caused hurt to someone else and why? So awareness is the first step. One really amazing way to bring awareness to a situation is to go see a therapist. They will help you talk through whatever it is that you are dealing with. So I will never not recommend therapy. But one thing that therapists will tell you is that a journal is your best friend. And some people think journals are weird. It's like a diary, but it's definitely not. It's just a lot of us have a million thoughts going, on in the course of like 60 seconds. So in order to kind of just center yourself and really bring some clarity to whatever it is that you're thinking about, sometimes journaling really helps to calm the mind, to center your thoughts, and to bring some, focus. And the second step after you have become aware of the hurt is to identify the thought patterns. Now, this is really, really important, okay? I don't want you guys to miss this. Identifying the thought pattern is huge. And this is where a lot of people drop the ball. Once you have become aware of where, you are hurting or causing hurt, you have to sit with that hurt long enough to track the thoughts that follow. Okay. So, right, let's say, here's an example. Let's say, in my previous relationship, this individual, would tell me that I was never going to be successful and that I was never going to make it. And I was this and I was that. Right. And so a lot of times, I would brush it off, but in sitting with those words that hit me and they really hurt me, maybe like a couple of weeks later, not only would those thoughts start to cause me to think negatively about myself, but it would cause me to think negatively about my partner, my former partner, which obviously, at the time, people would say that was justified because he said some really horrible things about me. But it's such a horrible, nasty, horrible place to be in, right? Where now I'm saying essentially the same thing to him. Now I'm telling him he's not good enough. When we're not even talking about, success or jobs or careers, but I would say things that were belittling to him in conversation. I would tear him down. I would make him feel small. It was like my goal to just make him feel small. Why? Because in those moments when he talked badly about my abilities to be successful, it made me feel small. And so now I'm doing and saying things to make him feel small. I'm doing things that are demasculating, that are just awful in terms of my words. Um, and so I had to really give some true attention to that. That's where that's coming from. This thing hurts me, and when I feel like someone is making me feel small or making me insignificant or stifling my voice, I try to make people feel small and insignificant and less than, which is a really horrible thing to do, I know. Um, but that was definitely um, part of my thought patterns. And there was more thought patterns, right? Like identify all of them. Like there was other thought patterns that would come from that. Like I said, it would make me feel like I wasn't good enough. And then I would, try to apply for positions and then I wouldn't apply. And, so there's so many things that can stem from somebody's hurtful words or actions. So identify as many as you can. Like I'm being honest about this journal. I would write them all down. I would literally just sit down and put the hurt and then literally just bullet points of all of the thoughts that come up that are associated with that hurt. Another example is, maybe your friend, stabbed you in the back or, said some really horrible things about you. And now your thought pattern is every time you meet someone new, you think that they're gossiping about you. So before they can gossip about you, you start gossiping about them. You want to get all the dirt on them. You don't open up to your new friends now. And so you just want to sit at the brunch and get all the dirt on them. And you're not going to open up because of that friend that stabbed you in the back. Or now, when you have a young daughter, you're going to tell your young daughter to watch out for women because they're snakes and sneaky and all sorts of things like that, which isn't true. All women are obviously not snakes and sneaky. But that thought pattern derives from that one scenario where you were hurt by this individual back in the day. Okay, so number 3, after you've identified the thought patterns, you have to isolate them. You have to isolate the problematic ones specifically. And that's kind of what I did in terms of talking about identifying the thought patterns. Obviously, once you go through that list of bullet points, everything is not going to be problematic, right? Some things could potentially be positive. I'm blanking on an example of that right now. But you're going to have a lot of thoughts that come from bringing awareness to the hurt that you've caused or the hurt that you've endured. And so just make sure you isolate the ones that are problematic, the ones that are seeping over into your life in 2023 and that are potentially tied to things that you are doing and saying and feeling and believing in 2023. Okay. And then last but not least, number 4 is to work on those with your chosen outlet, right? So once you've identified all of your problematic thought patterns, you're going to work through those problematic thought patterns with your chosen outlet. And your chosen outlet is deeply personalized, okay? I don't know what that is for you, okay? It can be prayer, it can be through painting, it can be through journaling, it can be, you know, sitting down and finding forgiveness. And in some scenarios where appropriate, I do not advise this with, abusive former partners, or really former, romantic partners at all. But in some scenarios, it could be talking to the source of the pain, specifically if it's external hurt, which most hurt does come from an external person, and talking to that person and letting them know that they hurt you and how they hurt you. If you think that that conversation could be truly beneficial, sometimes just talking to somebody to let them have it and let them know everything you're feeling, it doesn't heal anything. So take this last one really with a grain of salt and really think about that one and pray about that one before you just jump into trying to talk to the person that caused you that pain. So last but not least, guys, I am going to leave you with a couple of scriptures. I'm not going to give you a Sermon on the Mount today, right? But I definitely wanted to share just a couple of scriptures to encourage you while you're working through your hurt. Two of these scriptures come from Psalm, which I love. It is Psalm 32:3, which says, "When I kept things to myself, I felt weak deep inside me. I moaned all day long." Then Psalm 39:2-3 says, "I kept very quiet, but I became even more upset. I became very angry inside. And as I thought about it, my anger burned." So the reason why I chose those two, I think you probably thought like, oh, she about to tell us something's about to uplift us. We about to get there, I promise. But I wanted to share these two specifically, Psalm 32:3, and then Psalm 39:2-3, which David obviously wrote the majority of the Psalms, because I just wanted to express the fact that it's okay to experience hurt. Like, we're human beings. Hurt is a real thing. But he's pretty much expressing what it's like to keep that on the inside and how it begins to hurt you when you keep things in and you keep quiet and you just become more upset and it festers. So I wanted to bring that like biblical reality to the fact that holding on to hurt is real, and it's not something that, only perfect people are able to, escape from. It's a very real thing, and we all do it. We do it intentionally and unintentionally. Then Psalm 56:8 says, "But you, God, have kept a record of all my tears," which I thought was just so sweet, because sometimes like we are just hurting and we are by ourselves and we are on the floor, we're laid out, or we're just in our bed and we're doing that, little, sniffle. But God sees you. He sees every tear you cry. And then lastly, Job 11:13-16. It says, "Put your heart right, reach out to God, then face the world again, firm and courageous. Then all your troubles will fade from your memory like floods that are past and remembered no more." So I love this verse because there are so many verses in the Bible that talk about God's love and God's care and how he's near to the brokenhearted, and I love that. But this talks about putting your heart right first and then reaching out to God. And I thought that this was really important because sometimes we feel like there doesn't have to be any work on our end. And I do think that that's false. There absolutely does have to be work on our end, and getting our heart right, and just making sure that we have surveyed ourselves, so that God can do his greatest work on the inside of us and really help us heal. I'm reading it again. Put your heart right, reach out to God, then face the world again, firm and courageous. Then all your troubles will fade from your memory like floods that are past and remembered no more. So yes, I thought that was very, very sweet. And I resonated with that verse quite a bit. So um I hope that that resonated with you all. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Crafted in Cards podcast. Remember that this is a continual process. Don't expect to just like run free from the cycles of hurt and be good tomorrow. And then also don't expect that like oh, you're free from the cycles of hurt and never again to return. No, like when I say this is a continual process, this is like a everyday thing because we're always getting hurt left and right, especially by subconscious external factors. And so that awareness piece is so crucial, guys. It's so crucial. So, yes, that is it for today's super deep but super necessary episode on the cycles of hurt. I hope this stuff is really helping you guys, is beneficial to you. I am, really loving spending this time talking and sharing things that are on my heart every single week. So I really pray that it is touching even just one person. So, guys, please don't forget to leave me a comment, like, subscribe on whatever you are listening to this on, and share if you care. Bye. See you next time.